In this video, I'm going to talk about office etiquette. I've been trying to figure out how to come back to YouTube and what videos to make, and I just am stumped. But this came up in one of my Facebook groups this morning, so I thought I would make a video that could stick. And I would put it on YouTube because I get a lot of questions about this, and I don't think that we think about it in our role as a principal. So let's talk about office etiquette. What I mean by that is, how do you act or what goes on in the office of your school? What do you want that to look like? And I have my notes on my computer in front of me, so I will be looking at those. But I wanted my office to be welcoming to teachers, parents, students, anybody who came in the office. I wanted it to be a welcoming experience. For example, when it comes to teachers, I want my teachers to come up to the office and be in the office. And I felt like if they weren't in the office, that meant something was off or on. Granted, they had a lot to do and I wanted them to get their work done, but I wanted them to feel safe and like it was a happy place to come in the office. So that was my number one thing. Parents, I wanted them to think that it was a good experience to come into the office. The office is super busy. I needed to explain these office etiquette things to the teachers so they would understand what was going on and not get their feelings hurt. So at the beginning of the year, back to school meeting, my secretary would talk to the teachers about stuff, and then I would talk to the teachers about stuff as far as when it came to being in the office. A lot of things that happen in a school office are extremely confidential. So if we stop talking when you walk in the door, it doesn't mean that we're talking about you. It just means we're talking about something confidential, and we are going to stop talking when you walk in. Sometimes I had a code word, or I told my secretaries, okay, I'm going to stop talking right now, and then somebody would walk in, and then we would finish the conversation later. These are in no order. This is going to be really random. The copy machine. The copy machine in the office was for the office only unless other copy machines were broken down. So there were 3 copy machines in the building, and the one that was in the office, sometimes people would just come up and use just for the sake of doing it, which was fine, or if the other ones were broken, but the one that was in the office just needed to be for the office. Office phones are for the office only. Every classroom has a phone in it. If students need to make a phone call, they need to make a phone call from their classroom and not from the office. That's old school. We used to send kids to the office to make phone calls because there was only one phone in the office. Now classrooms have them, so don't do that. Don't send kids to the office to make phone calls. Kids that are coming to the office, make sure that they are capable of telling us why they're coming to the office. If you're a kindergarten teacher, don't send the lowest kindergartner to the office with an assignment unless you send a note with them, because by the time they get to the office, they're not going to remember what they're supposed to tell us that you sent them for, and then we end up having to call. Or if you send 2 kids jacking around to the office, they're messing around and they're not going to remember why they're coming to the office. So the kids that come to the office either need to have a note or be able to explain why they're there and what they need from us. My own children and teachers' children were not allowed to hang out in the office. If you need to come up to the office and grab something, then come up and grab it. But don't bring your kids up and sit down and listen to the conversations that are going on in the office. I just had to have that conversation. There were teachers' kids that were hanging out, and I did not want them to know what was going on. And I set the example because I didn't let my kids hang out in the office. There is candy in the office, or there used to be candy in the office, and it wasn't for kids or teachers' kids, and you kind of had to make that known. So basically what I'm saying is you just had to explain what the rules and guidelines were for the office, because if you didn't and people were doing things that you didn't approve of or didn't like or were against your happiness philosophy of the office, then how would they know if you didn't tell them? Let's see. Unfortunately, the nurse's office was attached to the main office. I don't say unfortunately because, I love the nurse. It's just that the smells and sounds that come from the nurse's office are not okay, and kids are in the nurse's office sick, and I don't want them to hear what's going on in the office. So oftentimes we would have to shut the door to the nurse's office, or We just would have to remember that there would be kids in there if we were talking. And I didn't want people on the phone to hear kids crying or puking or issues in the nurse's office just for confidentiality reasons. Maybe your nurse's office isn't attached to the office. Loud voices carry down the hallway. If you have a window in your office that stays open, then your voices in the office can carry however far down the hallway. So remember that. Having the door closed to like just my office meant don't come in. I didn't close my door very often. Usually there was a sign on it that I was recording, I was in a webinar, I was in a meeting, or somebody walked in and it was just a confidential conversation. So it was like, just please don't walk in if the door is closed. You have to remember that parents can hear the conversations that are going on in the office, and there are people in the office bathrooms, there are hallways and nooks and crannies. So when you're talking about things in the office, there could be people in the outer area of the office that could hear it. So you just have to be conscious of that. I loved having the teacher mailboxes in the office because that meant the teachers had to come up to the office. And then I could also leave treats and stuff in the teacher mailboxes. So if you can have that. At my last school, they didn't have mailboxes in the office. I think she was moving them to the back up to the office. And teachers didn't really come to the office that often at my last school, but I kind of learned they were with their kids more. They didn't have as many planning periods or breaks as what I was used to. And so there wasn't really an opportunity for them to come to the office as much. And the mailboxes weren't in the office and the refrigerator wasn't in the office. So at my last school, they weren't coming to the office. And once I realized why, I didn't take it personally. But at first I was like, why aren't people coming in the office? Let's see. Oh, I had to talk about how you treat the secretaries, because when you're in a school for a long period of time, you become family, and sometimes we treat family worse than we treat just acquaintances. And we're having bad days, or there's issues with the kids, and it gets hard. So we have to talk about, my secretaries were really thick-skinned and they put up with a lot, but I also had to remind them, hey, sometimes the secretaries don't know. It's not the secretary's fault. I made the rule. I made that happen. Don't get onto the secretary or ask the secretary, and don't put the secretary in an odd position or in a bad position feeling like they have to or they can't tell you things. Let's see. Sometimes in schools, the front office is locked and you can't get in just right in the front. You have to come in the back door. We did have to institute that. It was really hard to get used to because I didn't like having it locked, but we had to do that. We had the laminator in the office because I thought it was a convenience for the teachers that we just did the laminating for them when we had time, and that way the laminator wasn't left on and it just was easier and there was room for it. So when we had time to laminate, we would laminate and just left it up in the office. Teachers could come up to, but that was kind of a service I thought we provided for them. Checking in and out credit cards to go shopping. They could only be gone for the day. Teachers couldn't keep credit cards overnight in the summer because something may happen. They may not want to come to work the next day in the summer. So we had them bring credit cards back if you were going to use the credit card. And last, just for this video, for right now, because I don't really want to edit it, I just want to upload this video. But last is that students shouldn't be sent to the office to sit for discipline or timeouts, because the office is not the place for little kids to hear things and then be able to go home and tell their parents things. I didn't know how to organize that in my last school because there weren't enough people to support things and places to send kids. But I had to explain to teachers, please don't send your kids to the office. Call the office and let them know if we need to come and get them, or send them down with a note. We may send them back if something is going on and we can't deal with them at the time, but please don't just send kids to the office to just sit and do nothing. There were times that we did have the kids in the office, but I didn't want that to be a norm where discipline was just sending them to the office all the time because you were tired of them. I hope that these office etiquette tips are helpful. I'll put some other resources down in the description of this video, and I probably won't edit this video because I just don't have time and I can never get videos uploaded to YouTube. So you can scroll back through this channel for other principal content or helpful information for going back to school, but let me know what other things I can help you with as far as being a principal.